Nation, another glorious day here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Feels like we just did this. So another week has passed.
Yes.
Time lapse, time speed, another video. So today, last week we talked about belts, conveyor belts. Not the ones that you keep your pants up with, but the ones that move materials. Which brings us to materials, the raw materials. We're talking about rock, sand, coarse, fine ags.
Yes.
Talking about cement, pozzolans. What else? Is that it?
Admixtures, water.
Water.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the big ones. There's a few other, things that occasionally will be automated batching that aren't normally, if you're at a busy plant, use a lot of fiber, for instance, you could have an automated fiber batcher. A lot of companies are just will throw that in at the wash rack. Like that's one of the reasons that we did the wash rack video early, so we could refer back to it.
So we're going to talk about raw materials and proper weighing of said materials, whether it's liquid form or other.
Yeah, so some of this could be review for a lot of folks who've been around concrete for a long time, but for those of you that are just getting into it or want to learn a little bit more about sort of how the sausage is made, but to get it dreamy and creamy and breaking well,
you got to have the right weights.
You got to have the right weights. And it starts, we did a previous video on calibration, and it of course starts with calibration of your scales, and that's very important. But the age-old battle between operations and quality in a ready-mix concrete plant is production speed versus accuracy. And it's not, battle is the wrong word.
I was about to say, so many times they come together, this wonderful cacophony of beauty.
Yes.
And as a test man, I loved when it happened that way because I didn't have to worry about anything. And being at a batch plant, doing a batch plant inspection, I loved when it just all worked out. You just wrote your numbers down like, hey, everything meets the specs, let's go.
Yes.
So it's not a battle. It is something you're trying to adjust to make sure both happen.
Absolutely. You want both things to be operating at the peak performance, speed and accuracy.
Checks and balances of your batch man, your QC guy, your loader man, and everything else. Make sure they put the right rock where they need to.
And it starts with free fall compensations, or FFCs, as they are.
Free fall compensation?
Free fall compensation. It's like
you need to explain it because it sounds like somebody just fell off something and got compensated for it, and I just don't know if that's a good thing.
Can you toss me that eraser?
That sounds like tossing compensation, not free fall. I'm still at a loss.
I'm gonna explain.
You gonna explain it?
I'm gonna explain it.
I'm about to learn.
Thank you, Mr. Director. So, imagine that this is a rock.
Yes.
Okay, it's not, but imagine if it is. And you have a scale up here, or sorry, down here. The scale is here. You've got a storage bin up here. Right. And there's a gate that opens and closes.
Yes. When
that gate opens, then there's a little bit of time between when the gate opens and when that rock hit the scale.
Gotcha.
That can be as much as, say, 150 pounds on a coarse aggregate scale, where from the time that it's leaving the bin and the gates have opened to the time it actually hits the scale. So you've got aggregate in the air that you have to account for.
You're talking about the end of the weighing part. So not the beginning of it, it's got to be the end of it, because if you're weighing up to 3,000 pounds, you still got some in free fall.
Right.
When that scale hits it.
Right.
Okay.
And that is the major concern is at the end, because you need to tell it to shut off the gate
before it
actually hits that target weight, and then kick into what's known as a jog sequence.
Okay.
Instead of running full speed, we're now jogging. And that's going to be a series of signals that causes that gate to close and then open in very small pulses that allows the target weight to be hit.
So you're adding just a little bit. So when you get close, 2970 or so, just as a number to that 3,000, you just...
And then it's
little here till you get up to 3,000. Gotcha.
Sprinkling salt on something like the famous meme. So that free fall compensation's first, jog time second, and those things are very important to hitting your targets. And we discussed in I believe it was the first QC video we did, we discussed the ideas of tolerances in ready-mix concrete production. this is how you hit those tolerances, is with these plant mechanisms that are all set up typically by the batch computer. You go in and you adjust those things and you watch and make sure that you're getting what you're wanting. But
Yeah, the first time you mentioned the jog to me, times I was laughing because I've not seen too many batchmen that actually look like they jog.
including me.
Hey, I'm one of those guys too. It's like I learned a long time ago, why run when you can walk, and why walk when I can drive?
Yes, sir.
Made it a lot easier on me.
So that's where it all begins, but it can have variations depending on moisture content in the aggregates. Will cause it to flow differently. So be aware of that, but also maintaining and keeping your proper air pressure in the plants, because those gates are pneumatically operated. So if you have a situation where you get, for instance, moisture or water in the line, the air line, it can cause gates to open and close slower than you want them to. If your power fluctuates, it can cause the gates to open and close slower than you want them to. Things like air leaks can cause that air pressure to not be consistent, but you can thankfully hear air leaks, as we mentioned last video, listening to your plant. You should tune your ears to be able to hear those air leaks and know when it sounds different than it did the day before.
Or an hour before, whenever.
Compressive preventative maintenance is very important. Make sure it's topped off with oil and all the things that an air compressor needs. Check your V-belts to make sure they're not wearing, and those are the V-belts that go around as part of that motor or the compressor. Grease, if there's any grease fittings, usually there are. And one of the big deals too is with cement and cementitious silos, often those materials require a dry air fluffing effect to allow that material to flow. Imagine what would happen if you didn't have an air dryer in line.
Oh yeah.
And you got moisture in your lines, and it's
cement
trying to fluff the cement silo.
Yeah, it's not going to work out real well.
It's not going to work real well. Often those will have, we talked about belt conveyors last time. Often cementitious materials are going to have screw type or auger type conveyors to a scale. Those augers are going to have grease fittings. They're going to have motors and V-belts. So watch out for that, and make sure that all the preventative maintenance is being done there. And then finally, moisture comp in all of your aggregates. Cannot be overstated how important that is.
Yeah, because too much, too little, you're going to mess up your tolerances. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get the right slump out there. Can it hit your brakes? There's a lot of things that can go on into it. So.
Yes, sir. And it's a total package of preventative maintenance, watching out for your ag moisture, making sure that you're listening to your plant. You want your air system, your power system, and everything to be healthy and operating at peak efficiency. And so quality control and maintenance of the plant are way more interrelated than most people would ever think. Okay. But one of my best friends at the concrete company I worked for was the head of plant maintenance. And I made it a point to try to take him to lunch at least once a month and make sure that he's an extra set of eyes for me as a QC manager. So it seemed to work well. I hope it can work well for you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. You have any questions, Josh, before we stop? No, but I will say, just keep in mind that we're giving you a very small insight into this. There's a lot more going on with it, and hopefully those who don't have a clue as to what a batch plant looks like, and well, you're seeing a tip of an iceberg of what really goes on there. Mm-hmm. And the most important thing we can say, no matter what we're doing, the more eyes, the better. Brent and I have talked, several times about our relationship and where it started from and why we did that. More eyes, the better. Mm-hmm. So the QC at the batch plant, the test guy, those guys talking is going to give you a better job at the end of it. So more eyes, the better. Kind of watch everything, but just remember, it's the tip of the iceberg. We're not getting to everything it needs to be. We're just kind of giving you a light. Absolutely. Communication, like in so many other areas, communication is very, very important. And the opportunity to help a concrete company produce great concrete is a huge responsibility. Yes. So these things, hopefully there's one or more tips that will help you in your daily jobs. And when you have an opportunity to produce great concrete and you don't because you've overlooked something, it's a bad feeling. And I'm speaking from someone with experience, because I've had some of those situations happen in the past, and that's how, they're expensive lessons.
Yeah.
So I hope you've enjoyed this, and stay tuned. We're going to have some more Concrete QC videos. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. Reach out to us and let us know if we can help in any way.
Thank you.